All right, all my little YouTube motherfuck faces. It's a special edition of Validation Boy live stream, July 3rd, 2020, featuring extra special guest, the legend, the icon, the main event, Tim Osman. And how fitting is it that we're one day shy of Independence Day, and we have two of the most free-thinking independent thinkers in the entire YouTube conspiracy scene. How you doing, Tim?
Hey, doing well. Whatever you did with your mic definitely makes you a lot more poppy, it seems like at this point. Almost like a connection issue. I was checking my connections, but I seem to be good.
I don't have my
But
pop protector in front of me. Is that a little
you sound better now. But it is
bit? I was getting a little.
I haven't done a live stream or anything for a long time. I sometimes go on Jose's, used to call into IPS's because he, so sometimes has some decent information. So I kind of a while back figured out that this something was happening, something big was happening, and then 2020 happened, and who could have predicted where we would be in the trouble that we're in right now? This situation is astounding.
How symbolic that it's all culminating here around Independence Day, right?
I mean, it's just been the whole year. You could say every holiday, and it'll probably be into Thanksgiving. It'll probably be into Christmas. It'll probably be into next year. And probably, as Dr. Bill Gates tells us, until we have a vaccine, we probably won't return to the way of life we once knew. And this new normal thing, it's straight out of the 1984 Communist Manifesto almost. It's incredible what they've done to us. And it was like at first it was like, hey, we need to flatten the curve. A lot of us were like, okay, we'll try to help flatten the curve. And this is the position that we're in now, where once states start opening up, these medical places are reporting more cases, not so much more deaths, but definitely more cases. They're reporting them, at least. Austin is a prime example of them switching up things to basically have more, quote unquote, positive COVID cases. And, this whole thing is an absolute scam. The first time I heard about it, or actually talked about it, was on Jose's, and I was like, this is going to be the biggest scam of our lifetime. And thus far, it really has turned to be that way.
For sure, man. It's pretty much a tyrant's playbook, the tyranny playbook 101. And I'm really surprised that so many Americans were so fucking eager to comply with these ridiculous demands that have honestly no tangible proof as far as I've seen. How come there's not thousands of videos on YouTube of people in their bed hacking up a lung showing their COVID symptoms? It's like they don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I told this story too right when this was happening because I had a sickness that I've never had. My family's never had. My dad's 66 now, 65, 66. He's never had anything like it. So the whole family experienced something around January. And so when this came out, I was very suspicious, thinking that I likely already had it, because this wasn't the cold, this wasn't the flu. It was kind of like the cold a little bit, but the coughing was so odd, and it lasted for weeks, literally weeks. So I've kind of been on the position that it already went around, and then it took a couple of months for people to come out and say, well, we're testing blood banks, and we're testing dead people, autopsy dead people. And yeah, they had COVID. And so they, I think it was around March, or I forget what it was now. It's all blending together. But the original case, patient zero here in America, was supposedly in Seattle. And then come to find out, a lot of people had already had it. A lot of people talk about already having it. And what we're seeing now is 65 and older looks like about a 0.26% mortality rate and people under that about 0.01. So you basically, if you're under that, you don't have comorbidities. You basically are more likely to get struck by lightning twice in a row and die, in my opinion, than die from this very weak kind of cold.
Do you think it's a modified strain of the flu?
It's, they call it like SARS COVID 2. So there's different coronaviruses that have already gone around. There was one in 2008, 2009. And it's funny to actually look back and look through some of the news and see that people were lining up back then for a vaccine to this. And really, you kind of touched on how people are just kind of going along with this. And it's because they were scared shitless. They were absolutely scared shitless. Every time they're watching the news, there's a ticker as if it's some kind of a time clock or something showing, oh my God, 1,000 people have died. And so, if we did that every year for the cold and flu, we would all be equally, well, I guess it would kind of be revealing in this case after this whole debacle. But a lot of people die. And, it came out, oh my God, Italy's just crashing and burning. Then it comes out that, 89% of those people were like 80 plus and had several comorbidities. So in our world, basically what they're doing is allowing, in the sake of people who are nearly going to die next year or within 5 years, they're basically trading the life of the economy and the young people's lives, everybody's, for a very mild cold, basically. It's insane, dude.
Yeah, I don't understand how they expect the economy to function. I mean, it's obviously by design. They're trying to move this into some kind of strange socialist leftist dystopia.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That would be
you got to fix your mic, or I got to turn myself down so we can equalize it for the people. It sounds like, yeah, it's more of a communist revolution. We keep seeing these, chazzes. There was obviously one in Seattle by some Raz guy and a bunch of clown liberals, and you got some weird noises. But then we're actually seeing it in New York now. It is like the communist revolution is being televised right now, which we should probably try to keep on COVIDs just for a little bit, because we can easily switch back and forth and draw parallels probably at the end, I would assume.
yeah.
That's much better.
Okay, yeah, I unplugged the mic. I'm just going raw. I'm going bareback.
Nice.
But it's so hot in Florida. I have to have a bunch of fans going, or else I'll just die. I mean, I have the air conditioner and it's like 75 degrees in here, and I got a floor fan blasting on me, and I got the ceiling fan on full blast because I just got out of the shower. I've been working 9.5-hour days for the last 3 days straight.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, at least I guess you have a job. But what's interesting, that I guess we could probably go ahead and tie this in because it's so relevant, that there are people on the streets. At first, it seems like there was some liberal clowns out, and then there was basically people trying to get YouTube clicks or have a viral video. And then basically, I think that it went hand in hand. I think they both were planned together, in that you would have the COVIDs first. You'd have this thing called the CARES Act and PPP. Not so much the PPP that I can really do much with right now, but the whole CARES Act, giving people money to not work and giving them sometimes in excess of $1,000, $1,200 a week to not work for a while, have them basically locked down, and then have this whole George Floyd thing happen, right after, basically. And so we have a bunch of people that are unemployed, it seems, because these people don't have jobs. They're out the next day. They continue to do this and do this and do this. So there's money in their pocket, and they have severe lockdown issues, probably being stuck in the house for so long, and now they just want to go tear shit up. And the cause is so crazy to me. This guy is not somebody that you should get. You should back, in my opinion. He was high on fentanyl. He was high on methamphetamine. The cop had his knee on his neck, which a neck restraint like that actually won't choke you out, because I've choked people out and I've been choked out myself. Both the corners, the private one and the JFK's corner or whatever, and Epstein's corner, say that there was no sign of him being choked. So he also tested positive for COVIDs. So I'm sure he was even though there's a cop with his knee on his neck, and supposedly he got choked out and died from that. I'm sure he's one of those numbers for Minnesota that died from COVIDs.
Right. I mean, if he is even really dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole situation. I would go with, I don't go down that route because there's no real evidence that he is dead, or really that he's not dead. So, maybe he's on Crisis Actor Island or on Tupac Island or something like that. But at the same time, he looked pretty unresponsive, truthfully, to me. And then you got like an ambulance that pulls up with like sheriffs that get out, and then they throw him on the gurney. They don't do like triage. They don't try to do chest compressions. Maybe they did when they got him into the back so no one could see it. But at the same time, the whole thing looked terrible. It looked somewhat staged. Chauvin worked with him for like 17 years or something like that at some nightclub that conveniently got burnt down. The police station there, with probably evidence of something, got burnt down there too. So it's all extremely shady to me, nonetheless. But these cops that are going to jail right now, I don't understand how they would ever even be convicted, first off. And that might be a shock to a lot of people, because they look at this and they keep being told by these media pundits, these talking heads, that this was the most terrible thing. And they have to be, they have to play or feign remorsefulness and say, oh, it was terrible what the cop did, But at the same time, they charge him with second-degree murder. The guy was high on fentanyl and methamphetamine, and he had COVID. And it seems like the people that were the first responders didn't seem to help very much. And the neck restraint he was using was allowed at the time. So I don't see how anyone, first day defense lawyer probably could win this case. But at the same time, it's very tough at this point to find unbiased jurors in this case. I mean, everybody's heard about it, probably because they went downtown and got their, face smashed in, or their car smashed up, or they saw the burnt down buildings. I mean, in Salt Lake City, we have a population of about 1% black people. And I call them black because African American, that's ridiculous to call people. I don't know. I'm white, they're black. I don't find anything bad about that. But basically, the first night of the riots and protests, quote unquote protests, we had, little white liberal Twixie, pixie stick motherfuckers basically come out of the woodwork.
Self-hating white cucks, yeah.
Yeah. Come out of the woodwork to try to burn shit down and hurt people and stuff. And that was the only night basically that happened. And I actually found a actual picture of a lady when the cop car was turned over. There was like maybe a few things damaged. It wasn't that bad. But literally, some white lady pulled up her shirt, like she had like a bra on, and pulled down her panties, and like was dropping a deuce on a cop car, dude. Like I was like, whoa! I thought I was in Utah. This is somewhat of a civilized area, to a certain extent. So, it hit not only our country, but then it went into all the other countries. And this is what I find very suspicious about that happening, is that so did COVIDs. So did this mass hysteria, this hoax called Corona. And when I say hoax, and you think that that means everything's fake, well, you might want to go look up the word. It actually doesn't mean that. And I use it to the greatest extent of the word, as it is hyped up to be something. Basically, it's not. And so we have all these countries in lockstep, not only over COVIDs, with the masks and the lockdowns and all this stuff, almost the whole world. And then we have pretty much the same thing. Many countries joining in on the loot parade, the quote unquote protest for Black Lives Matter, and I mean, there's so much to talk about here, but go ahead for a moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that these two things did coincide so well. I mean, I thought everyone was supposed to be on lockdown. Next thing you know, there's some guy in Minnesota getting killed by a cop. Wasn't he supposed to be home? I thought everyone was supposed to be on lockdown. And then I'm hearing about, bricks being delivered to these protests. Geez, so many things have unfolded in all of this.
We have a lockstep. We have like a lockstep of like liberal cucks coming out and Antifa coming out and joining with Black Lives Matter. And I was pretty sure that, Black Lives Matter was funded back in the day with Ferguson and other things, 33 million supposedly by George Soros, an old white oligarch, basically, an old white, just crusty old man that needs to be in a box someday, truthfully. And, there's these Antifa manuals and meetings and stuff where they go and they are pitching all of this anti-America stances, and also like how to eye gouge people and how to not look like you're part of a group and all this stuff. I mean, it's in writing, but it's also in video people have actually produced. So, I mean, it is, to me, a domestic terrorist group. And I find that BLM is a domestic terrorist group as well. Anyone who says that some of the leaders, literally, they come out, or at least one of them would come out and like, I'm a trained Marxist. Really? Well, that is not American values, And it's so funny that they tear down all these statues of like abolitionists, and they even got Albert Pike. But Black Lives Matter is to incite people, is to make people mad. And, people get fired by saying all lives matter, which is a more sensible comment. And I've always said, well, maybe I would be a little bit more behind Black Lives Matter if it was Black Lives Matter too, or like also, not that it's inflammatory to say Black Lives Matter and exclude all of the other colors of people that we have here. And
yeah, it doesn't make sense. There's people out there. It's basically a lot of people are out there saying or getting at this idea that only Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. And really, I mean, the crime statistics are shocking when you look at blacks are supposedly 10 to 13% of the population, but do over 50% of the murders and 50% of the violent crime and rape and all this stuff. So in a certain sense, and we got to get into white guilt and white fragility and stuff too. There's so much to go over. But when you see that there's a vast majority or a majority of them that are criminals and violent criminals, it leads one to be more racist, I suppose, towards them and more stereotypical. Just like after 9/11, when we're conditioned to believe that towel-headed people would come over here and they're all terrorists, like Islamic people and Muslims, or it's like the extremist portion is like less than 1%. But here we have an exorbitant amount of the people actually doing the crimes. And when I was watching all the looting, I couldn't help but notice. I watched almost all the looting videos, all of the setting stuff on fire. Yes, there are some white people. Yes, there are some Mexicans that are looting and stuff. But the vast majority, over 70% being conservative in my mind, were black people taking shoes and taking stuff from Target and all this stuff. So, like, if Black Lives Matter, maybe we shouldn't, abort millions of black babies. Maybe we should address the thug culture and, getting into who created the thug culture, probably some older white guys is a whole different conversation, but their culture in America sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, what's your opinion on the idea that when these people are saying that America sucks and capitalism sucks, they're really just saying that white people suck and white culture sucks. Or does America? I mean, I don't know. It's like America and England kind of own the whole, capitalism thing, right? Open market, free markets thing. That's really, I really attribute it to white culture. I mean,
For the most part, I mean, you can look at the Five Eyes, and that most of those countries are somewhat predominantly white. But at the same token, the white race compared to other world statistics are actually on a decline, and we're actually a minority. So, claiming all this minority status and, oh God, there's so many blacks in prison. And, I mean, really, if you take the FBI statistics that you can look at yourself and see that the 13%, 10 to 13% doing 50% of murders and crazy crimes, why wouldn't a cop kind of be suspicious of a thug looking black dude? Like I am, I'm in white country over here. Like I said, there's 1% black people, and I didn't move here specifically for that. But I used to live in Southside Fort Worth, where there was a huge thug culture of Mexicans. I've hung around at trailer parks when I was a kid. I didn't live there, but I've seen the bad cultured people of all races have been shot at, all this kind of stuff. So there's bad people in all races, but nobody ever brings up, well, some of the black conservatives do, but nobody ever brings up the main issue that we're having, and that is that statistically, a cops killed like 9 unarmed black people last year, and they're like thousands times more likely to get killed by a black person than a cop is to kill a black person. So it's all ass backwards, and it's all. And I try to be apolitical, but with the COVIDs and with this whole thing, I'm so far on the Republican side right now, even though they're
conservative, not necessarily
yeah.
Republican, but conservative. Yeah.
Well, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, yeah. But I'm far more on the conservative side because I do have kind of American values. I don't want to see our cities burned down. I don't want to live in Mogadishu, So you can just see what the liberals are promoting. They're promoting the masks. They're promoting, sending us trillions and trillions more into debt. They're promoting, Black Lives Matter. Then they'll kneel for them. They'll put, African garb on, like Nancy Pelosi and her ragtag gang of just clowns. I mean, how could you? I think they've overstepped their boundaries. I think, with the closed borders, perhaps, they couldn't ship in a bunch of illegals to vote for them this year. So what they're doing is actually going to, in my opinion, turn some liberals into conservatives. You want to go with that dialectic. Because, I mean, how can you back what they're doing? But I do see people backing what they're doing. It's totally absurd. They're totally on the wrong side of history. I mean, I heard a Democrat the other day. It's quite interesting. Actually, today he put something out on Twitter, and he's actually in politics. He brought up that, Democrats started the KKK and they opposed abolishing slavery. So he pretty much said that Democrats, and he brought up Margaret Sanger too, which was huge into eugenics, huge starter of Planned Parenthood. And she basically said things like, blacks are human weeds, they're reckless breeders, total racist. But you see Hillary Clinton being praised with the Margaret Sanger Award, saying this is the greatest honor of my life. Where it's like, actually, they've turned everything on its head. The Democrat, if we're going to tear down statues because they own slaves or whatever, well, the whole Democratic Party, or they need to change their name because they're the fucking racists throughout history. They're the race baiters right now, but nobody on that side can see that.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that they were the ones. Damn it! I was just thinking of something. Yeah. I forget if it was Roosevelt or if it was Truman, one of those guys. They're the ones that introduced the idea of just giving black people the handouts to keep them down,
Yeah, and
right?
that's what it's done. You would think that, these free stipends. Well, you look at, say, the American Indians. The Native Americans are not doing too good. First off, their body can't really metabolize alcohol as good as a lot of other races, and they're kind of getting into, well, they've already been into it, but they're heavy into drinking. Some, a lot of them, and so they live in ghettos, basically, a lot of them, and they get handouts too. They get, you here, here's your land, go stay over there, go piss off and go die in a corner. So a lot of the eugenicists, and with COVIDs, I mean, it's great. I think they were calling it the Great Equalizer, COVIDs, and yeah, it seems to be the case.
Yeah, it's funny to me. I mean, growing up in Central Florida myself, my whole life, it's never been really that liberal or that conservative here. It's always been truly a centrist area. My parents were pretty much centrists, leaning a little bit on the right side because my dad owned his own business, so they were a little bit slightly right leaning as far as like economically, but socially they're very centrist and open and honestly quite liberal. They had all different kinds of friends. When I was young, they would throw big parties and like play cards and stuff like that. They had lots of friends, all different kind of ethnic makeups over and everything. And I'm pretty sure that all the way back in the 80s and 90s, maybe I was a little bit more of a bright kid. I don't know, but I would always pay attention to these little kinds of things. And I'm pretty sure that by the 90s, people in my town, people in America in general, were over this whole idea that, oh, black people are inferior. All those stereotypical things. Like America already got past that in the 90s, man. And this kind of stuff that they're doing now, this whole thing where they're donning the garb of Africans and kneeling down and giving all this praise and giving all the black people a big free pass. I mean, that shit would have never flown 20 years ago because we were already emotionally past that as a country, as a culture. So I don't understand how they can take 10 steps back like this. It really just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I actually agree, because I saw it personally when I was growing up. I was born in the late 80s, and I saw my grandpa, which I hate to say it, but I mean, it's just the truth. He was much more racist than me and my dad. And it started to rub off. My dad lived through a little bit of segregation. And so, there's still he worked with black guys. He's really pretty successful with what he did. He worked for like 30, 40 years, didn't 40 something years probably. Didn't go to high school, had the American dream, white picket fence thing that used to be available to people. And, there was still something there, I feel like, a little bit. And then with me, I remember being in Georgia when I was a kid, and there was some just really loud black people, just very boisterous, like before the twerking. It just reminds me of like the twerking, like really, just some of the people that you hear now. And they're kind of making fun of them, like my mom and my dad. And I was like, hey, they're just people. Like they're just trying to have fun. And they always made fun of me for that. But I feel like, truthfully, we were grown up around the same time. I think it was diminishing, and it's not something that you turn the page and, oh, segregation's done, and these feelings are done. But at the same time, the fire was dwindling, and it sure was with me until I started. And I'm not saying that I'm racist. I whatever I am, I'm white. We're both white, and we're males. We are racist. We have to give in to our white fragility and our white guilt or whatever. But I've always treated, if you see a nice looking black dude or a Mexican or whatever, you feel a certain way. They're just people. But then you see even a white thug or a black thug or a Mexican thug, like those people who do crimes and stuff, you start to build kind of stereotypes. And really, even with my generation, I feel like we were getting past that. Like it wasn't even taught to us in any sense of the imagination. But now, to stoke the flames, that's what the liberals do. And this is all happening. The COVIDs and this whole racial divide thing is happening on an election year, of course. And I would like to point out that some people say that the right-left paradigm is all a big hoax, and they're just puppets, and they're put in. And to me, it's like, actually, I can't believe that actually now, because of how hard the liberals tried to get Trump and impeach him and continue to make up lies and lies and lies over and over again. So I feel like it's not as clear cut as most conspiracy minded people would like to make it. So, they say, you're when you getting the most flack, you're under the target or whatever like that. It seems like that may be the case. And at this point, I don't even know why Trump is running again. I mean, these people, like, you get your hour of hate or whatever. You go to Twitter every single day. I just check it. I'm just like, what's going on? These things that are raised to the top and they're trending are always disgusting Trump lies and Trump hate. So like, I'm more on his side now. I've never voted, and I probably never will, never even registered to vote. But at the same time, when you see the amount of vitriol and hate from these liberal cuckboys, it's insane. I do not want to be a part of that. And I guess I would say I'm a little bit more libertarian minded, as in kind of like, leave me the fuck alone and I'll leave you the fuck alone. Don't make me wear a mask. Don't cut off my oxygen. Don't make me breathe in my own bacteria and CO2 and nonsense, because some people that have comorbidities have died. And I'm a big gun owner. I do appreciate that. And it's like, the first thing you learn is gun safety, so that you don't hurt anybody needlessly. But you also learn that, if you step on my property and you try to hurt, my family or my girlfriend, like, I'm going to have to do something about that. And the best thing that we have is the Second Amendment, which again is what liberals are trying to take away as well. And what we'd have is basically more lawlessness than we saw with the riots. We'd see the criminals and the police have guns and us disarmed, basically, the law-abiding citizens. And so, I'm not pitching Trump, but at the same time, I'm like the lesser of two evils kind of thing when you do think about politics, where I see Biden, talk about a puppet, dude. He's not even going to be president. He doesn't even know where the fuck he is, dude. So it's going to be Clinton. It's going to be Gates. It's going to be all these companies all working together to get the Senate, to get the House, all democratically run. And then we're in a lot of fucking trouble, dude. If that happens, we're in serious trouble.
Yeah, it's starting to piss me off. Like how many people? Like I have this boss. Okay, she's my manager and she's a female, and she says she's a libertarian, but she's like a screaming fucking leftist. Okay, and she says that all her parents, where she grew up, like her whole family growing up, they're from out west, somewhere in a state very near you, one of the four corner states, and she says that they're all hyper conservative and they're all hyper racist and all this shit, and that's why she just wants to go against everything that they have stood for. But it's like deep down inside, you know what, boss lady, you probably agree with most of the things your family says, and the older you get, the more you're agreeing with them. So you can live in this little bubble. You can pretend that you know, that you really think everybody deserves equal everything and all this, despite the fact that they have been given all these chances, and just piss on them and throw them away over and over and over, and make that their culture, where they just shit on what we give them, or what not what we give them, but what is granted to all citizens equally. They just shit all over it, and it's starting to piss me off because every day she's sitting there looking at her phone, laughing at Trump and talking about Trump is such an incompetent fucking idiot. Do you guys really think that Donald Trump is a completely incompetent retard? I don't believe that at all. I mean, the guy has done really nothing that I've seen to make me think, oh, that guy's just stupid. Everyone's on this kick that Donald Trump's a fucking stupid idiot. I just don't get it, man.
Yeah, and there are people in the chat. Trump is playing his part as well. Otherwise, why is he still listening to unelected officials? Part of that is political. If Trump comes to the podium by himself and says, this coronavirus, which he was saying at the beginning, is just going to pass over, no need to wear masks, all that kind of stuff. All of that will be a case for impeachment for the liberals. So, in a certain sense, this Fauci guy, which is a total fucking fraud. First off,
Fauci spans 4 administrations or 5 administrations.
And he is the top epidemiologist. So to cover his ass in a certain political sense, he brings up Fauci and Birx, which when you hear Trump talk about, he calls herd immunity the herd. Oh, Sweden tried the herd. They tried the herd. He's a fucking idiot. He doesn't know anything about epidemiology or viruses or anything like that. So they do get the top people supposedly to cover their own ass. There's no way that they would run an impeachment scandal again when he's, let Fauci run all over us with his liberal nonsense and his total connections to Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Clinton Foundation, the WHO, like NIH. It's a total scam. I understand, and I asked myself that as well. Why would he let these people make decisions? And just case in point, yesterday, just before they were off for today, which is Friday, which they usually work, here in Utah, they passed something saying till August 20th, we need to wear masks. And I actually called the 24/7 line last night. I was talking with the 24/7 of the coronavirus and the Department of Health, asking them, is this a recommendation or is this a requirement? Because the businesses in town are acting like it's a requirement. But also in section 4 here, it says any individual within Salt Lake County who is age 2 and over and able to medically or psychologically tolerate a face covering shall be required to wear a face covering. So there are people with asthma, there are people with health conditions where they shouldn't be wearing a mask. And really, it can be argued a 2-year-old wearing a mask is a fucking outrage. A 3-year-old, really wearing a mask is stupid. There's absolutely zero science backing up that we should be all wearing masks. And some people will bring up, oh, look at this study and look at this study. Or they'll say, oh, a doctor, he wears a mask. A surgeon will wear a mask. Well, they're in a sterile environment. they also are basically required to take it off every 30 minutes to get a new one. So this is comparing apples to oranges. And furthermore, people are saying it says basically that you should just wear some kind of face covering. So it could be like a cloth mask. And when you look at these clowns, even on the street, protesting everywhere, they have masks. Doctors get masks that are fitted for their face. All these people have masks that are like draping over. Sometimes their nose is sticking out. It's like there's giant holes, and they're not wearing the masks right. And then a cloth mask is ridiculous just for the same reasons. There's openings, there's all this kind of stuff. So this is all conditioning us for basically the great reveal. And then when I say great, this fucking sucks, dude. And when I get political and say that, we have a better chance at living an American life that we used to know with Trump as opposed to Biden, I think that's a fact. He's already said that he's going to mandate masks for everyone day one. So but what's good about this, and I do have to bring up the flat earth. Who?
Biden said that he's going to make everyone go on day one.
Yeah, he's going to mandate as a president to wear masks. But in some of these, health situations, or in some of these situations where I have to bring up flat earth just for a moment, in that, there's no scientists, there's no science in flat earth. There's no like legitimate people talking out. But when it comes to the coronavirus, there are legitimate actual PhD doctors and people that are relevant in the industry actually coming out and exposing this. So there is some legitimacy, and a lot of them don't, because their life is on the line. What are they going to go get a job at a restaurant or something? I mean, that's probably not even after they get fired, and because they speak out about it. So there are a lot actually that speak out about masks. They speak out about how they're classifying COVID, just everything. So it's good to see both sides. But when I look at the other side, the pro mask, the pro this, it's like, oh, it's just science, and it's a lot of liberal cucks. It's like the mask wearing has almost become a political meme where like the conservatives are like, oh, you can't touch my body, fuck you. And then you have the liberals who are like, oh, but you could kill grandma. It's not about you. We're all in this together. I really sometimes feel like I'm living in 1984. When I go to a store and I have over the intercom telling me to wash my hands and to fucking put on a mask and social distance, like this 2020 is insane what they're doing, and it's a complete power grab right now. We're fucked.
I cannot believe that this has had as much effect as it has, and that there's so many people doing this. I mean, how about the irony of the fact that we got to wear masks to protect from COVID, but then masks aren't doing shit to stop the alleged tear gas that Donald Trump is allegedly gassing all the black people with, right?
Yeah, and really, that's what the liberals do too. Is they're very hateful people, number one, but they also make up stuff like, oh, Trump's killed 124,000 people, and then you actually look at like what actually happened, where he did some pretty crazy stuff, like the travel bans and all this. I mean, he had the coronavirus task force. He's always talking about ventilators, which is a whole nother subject, where they're putting these people on ventilators because they thought that if you just gave oxygen to them, it would spread the COVIDs around or whatever, if throughout the room, and then you'd just be walking in a cesspit of COVIDs if you came in as a doctor or whatever. So they're they're intubating him, and it's not even funny to me actually. 8 to 9 out of 10 people die. Like 80 to 90% of people die when they're intubated, and it's not from the COVIDs. And then they set up these programs where the hospital will receive, which are hurting right now because, well, they might not be as much right now, but they were in the beginning, where they're giving them, like 11,000 to diagnose a COVID patient, and then they would give them like 39,000 to intubate them. So there's actually a incentive to do this. And Trump is, a talking head when it comes to this whole COVID issue, because he's like, I was watching those coronavirus task force, and it was like every day we got 20,000 ventilators, and it's like we're the best. We have the best ventilators. It's like, is anyone even telling him that it's like a death sentence to be intubated at this point? Like, it's not a successful treatment. He got a note from a Jewish doctor in New York who had two people die out of 800 that had serious condition of COVID. And basically, he was using hydrochloroquine and zinc sulfate and something else. So he actually sent that to Trump, and Trump ended up speaking and saying it at one of the coronavirus task force. Almost like a revelation of the method kind of thing. And then, of course, he was taking it supposedly, and the left side was freaking out. This 70-year-old drug that millions of people take for lupus and all this malaria and all these things that is completely proven. But the problem is Fauci and our new doctor, Bill Gates, and all these people are so invested. The pharmaceutical companies are so invested billions and billions in having a successful COVID vaccine at the moment. And so it's all monetary. I mean, these people, this Fauci and Bill Gates and all these people that are perpetrating this, they should be, really hung at the stake, dude. Like, these people are fucking disgusting people who have done this. And then it comes out of Wuhan lab, and, Fauci gave $3 million to this lab. And so it's like, did they release this on purpose to some other SARS virus on us to do this fucking thing? That's like, oh, just look at Event 201. They already fucking game planned it. Sure.
Well, it's almost like they would have had to have done this on purpose, because look at 2016. Look at how the right wing, or the conservative America, stood up in huge numbers and voted Donald Trump into office. I mean, American conservatism has been on the rise ever since the middle of Obama's administration, because of how corrupt and disgusting and liberal Obama was. What a fucking Nazi he was. Middle America was waking up. And so there was no real other way around getting Trump reelected, there's no way around it other than to create a massive crisis. And it's just completely obvious that it's a completely manufactured crisis, be it a real virus or be it a fake virus or whatever it is. I mean, the day that it happened, I was like, oh God, man, is this the level that the left is going to stoop to now? They're going to just play an unbeatable card like this, where you have to conform or else grandma dies. You're
going to kill your grandma if you don't wear a mask and you don't stay 6 feet away from her. And then Fauci comes out and says, oh, you don't need a mask. And then I forget, black general or something like that. Oh, masks are inefficient. And then all of a sudden the tune changes, and Fauci admits that he lied because the PPE needed to go to the doctors, basically. And so he just kind of, and now we need to wear masks. We have a good mask supply. And go ahead.
Before I forget, you're also going to kill grandma if you don't vote liberal. You're also going to kill grandma if you don't start taking the dole. It was just a complete leftist, communist, socialist, Nazi fucking agenda just being slammed down, just a huge platform slammed down with this, I hate to use the term, but a Trump card, that trumps Donald Trump, basically. Trump's conservative America. That's their only way of doing this was by basically cheating. It's basically a cheat code, because they can't actually beat conservative America in the numbers, obviously, because look how successful Donald Trump was. Look how Fox News is on the rise and is probably the most successful network news station out there, because most Americans have become awakened to the fact that, well, damn, I guess we are really a conservative nation, And
because the latter, the other side has gone way too far, as I said before.
It's like the left only exists in the media. I mean, there are leftists out there, but they're in small pockets. Most of America is conservative, and it's just unfortunate that the media is 99% extreme leftist, communist, liberal. and they make everyone believe that there's tons of people out here who are also leftists when there's really not. So then all the centrist people who have all the white guilt and have all the white fragility, they start to lean towards the left and they come to the center. And then all of a sudden there's this, they lay the smack down, the Trump card. Oh, COVID, you're going to kill grandma unless you take the dole.
Talking about cards, I feel as if at a certain point, like we should all revisit the Illuminati play cards because pandemic was on there. I mean, so many of the things that it seems like the liberals are using to their advantage is all there. And yeah, they need to literally import illegal people in here and promise them health care, basically free health care where we don't get free health care for, and give them a voting card to vote for them. And it's insane. Some of these states, like I left California several years ago. Beautiful, beautiful state, amazing. But the people there are so over the top of liberal, dude. It's just in your face, ridiculous, you know. And all I see is, you know, first it was like the trans agenda, the gay agenda, then now it's like Black Lives Matter agenda and COVID's agenda. And so they do play off emotion very, very heavily. And I don't, you know, I'll listen to Trump's rallies and stuff like that. Like, I don't get the same feeling from them. I watch Tucker sometimes on YouTube, you know, rarely, randomly. And he just seems to make more sense that, you know, and maybe that's because I was born this way. I was born to be a conservative or something. I don't know. But the other people, what they're doing is so bizarre. It's so in your face.
It's so juvenile. It's so emotionally stunted, emotionally underdeveloped stream of thought. You know, it doesn't even make sense. Like, how can someone actually even think like a liberal? I don't even get it. Like, is this real? Like,
that's what I'm saying, dude.
So stupid. It's like beyond stupid. Like, every single thing that they say can be shattered to a million pieces and debunked on the spot every single time. And yet,
how about what was it, Memorial Day, when people went to the Lake of the Ozarks and CNN, MSNBC, all these people were freaking out that these people weren't social distancing, they weren't locked in their house, you know, breathing their own COVIDs in or whatever, or giving it to their daughter and their son. And then 5 days later, this guy that has like been to prison 9 times, he was high on fentanyl and meth. He died from a white guy, supposedly. And so people started protesting. It's like 5, 6, maybe a week later. And then you see that, you know, people in mass can't go to football games. They can't go to UFC. They can't live the life that we used to live. And really, I don't know. I really hope that we get back to it. But they were, you know, saying that, yeah, protesting is, this is something that needs to happen. Whereas, you know, you had like 30 people at a pool or something, or this is the real kicker, dude. This is the real fucking kicker. And I'm not religious. I don't, I'm more agnostic, I would say. But when they would arrest people who were even having like drive-in services for church
in their own cars, sitting.
I mean, it's so over the top this time, man. I just, you know, that's why I say this whole liberalism meme like needs to die down. This whole cancel culture thing, where if you said something wrong like 10 years ago, or you happen to do blackface as like a comedy bit or something like that, you get canceled. It's all just vile. And you know, sometimes I have to tell myself like to not look at it, but I gotta kind of keep on top of like the programming, because once you kind of disassociate yourself and understand it, then you can actually analyze it. Whereas, you know, maybe I was watching CNN if I hadn't, you know, quote unquote awakened to this kind of stuff. and I would be like, oh man, these people in the Ozarks are going to kill grandma. And then 5 days later, oh, okay, we can protest because it really needs, all these black people are being murdered in the streets by cops. Like that could have been me. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it is hard to believe that these people exist, these liberal cuck boys that watch this stuff and actually subscribe to it and think that it's legitimate in any sense of the word.
Yeah, it's it's emotion versus logic. And what's the old saying? If you're young and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're older and you're not conservative, you don't have a fucking brain. And it's so true, man.
Interesting. I've never heard that before. But it does make sense. And really this is another thing, is that they always are going after the children. It seems like the liberals, I have to bring it up. It seems like they go after the children about guns. Eric Holder or whoever it was. We need to really, get this gun thing into these people's heads, and then you get the liberation movement and this trans agenda. You have like Gwyneth Paltrow or someone like that, where her 3-year-old boy said that he's a girl, and so like she, now it's a she, and all this stuff like that just doesn't fly with conservatives. And then they're called racist or homophobes or xenophobic. So yeah, it is all emotionally based. It's all hatred based when it comes to the left. And I usually don't like to even talk about politics, but this year has really brought out something in people. It's very evident.
Yeah, politics has played a big role in our society ever since little baby Bush was president. Because right around the time little baby Bush became president, there was kind of a reawakening of conservative America. And I remember seeing a lot of people, like young people, going around and helping to campaign for little baby Bush,
Yeah.
Because his dad was in there for only one term, and between his dad and him was Bill Clinton, well, really Hillary Clinton, for 8 fucking years straight, and people just stopped caring. And Bill Clinton presented himself as such a centrist that people were like, the Democratic Party is just generally better. We're just going to stick with them. And then it took a lot of groundwork, a lot of footwork from young conservatives to get a surge in favor of little baby Bush to become president. And then once he got in office, then they did all their false flags and all that, Building 7 and everything,
That's what I was kind of going to go into. And really, I think that he kind of, Cheney was right there with him. He's not a Republican. He's just a total
warmonger. Yeah.
Yeah. These neocon kind of people. And I think, and I'm not sticking up for Bush. He said a lot of stupid shit. He did a lot of stupid stuff. We almost have to blame him at the end of the day for what happened with 9/11 in the following years where he was president. I mean, if you look at like how many trillions in debt we were in like the 90s compared to then 9/11, and then compared to now, it's even if you had every dollar and you stacked them all up, it with all the derivatives and all this stuff, it's not even it's a debt-based society. You can never pay it back. So it's always this indebted servitude, basically, where our kids will still be, now it's $100 trillion in debt, and we're the greatest country in the world, right? So there's never a surplus. We shipped all the jobs off to China and elsewhere after the 60s, and so America has gone so far downhill, and it's very unfortunate because the idea of the Constitution and for the most part, women were kind of not really in that, and also blacks were like a third kind of thing. But we've kind of revised and we've grown as a people together. And what the liberals want to do is completely tear it apart with these hoaxes, these hoax riots, these hoax coronaviruses, the pandemics. Bill Gates, he hops out of the corner just like with needles in his hands, saying, I'm your doctor now, man. I was the Microsoft guy, then I turned into a philanthropist, and now I'm your doctor, dude. I never took a course in anything, but I just know, I just have a sneaking suspicion that there's going to be a second wave and there's going to be a second, bioterrorist attack. And so this is unfortunately probably what our life's going to be now. And
Bill, Bill Gates is at the forefront of every society shifting development that happens over the last 30 years, right? Or he's like
he
he's the face of it, or he's in the background behind it, whatever you want to say. It's like it's him. He's
he's
always there.
definitely helped pull the strings with some other ones.
Have you ever heard of the Kellergy plan? I did a video on it recently.
No.
Okay, well, there was this guy from Austria, and his dad was an Austrian diplomat, and his dad married a Japanese woman, and they gave birth to this guy, Richard Coudenhove Kalergi. Now, Richard Kalergi, this son of a diplomat, he was half Asian, half white. I mean, and he had this whole agenda that was basically, if you want to look at things on the surface, he was the exact polar opposite of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was supposedly all about purifying a race. This guy was all about muddying up the waters and trying to make sure that the entire world become one massive interbred mutt.
Is
He
that the
wanted to eliminate,
Kalergi plan?
yeah, the Kalergi plan, yeah.
Okay. I didn't hear you the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, the Kalergi plan is basically exactly what we're living through right now in Europe and America. It's basically white genocide, but through a long-term plan, not direct murdering genocide. They're not rounding up the white people, but what they're doing is they're de-seeding the white race out of existence. They're promoting interracial hookup culture, and they want to basically get white skinned people off the
At a
face of it.
certain point, I mean, really, like, we're both white. So, like I said before, we're racist. But truthfully, like, my girlfriend's Filipino, and uh, our skin is much more inferior than pretty much every other race. Like, I would probably rather not get completely cooked out in the sun in just a few hours. So it's kind of interesting for me, being a racist white guy, that I would actually rather have black skin to a certain extent, or a darker shade of white than what I have. Like,
Well, tell that to all the people that, aspire to have white people's features. I mean, think about all the black people that bleach their skin so they can look more white, and all the black girls that wear blonde wigs, and all the Asian girls that dye their hair bleach blonde. It's because the whole world is actually white supremacists. They all put us as the standard of beauty. That's why they
hey,
all try.
the grass is always greener on the other side. I actually learned about this bleaching soap from my girlfriend because
You do not want to rock a nappy weave, bro. I know you
no,
don't.
I dude, I'd have dreads, bro. No, I'm saying I just learned of this when I met my girlfriend, the whitening soap, because I didn't know this. South Korea, Philippines, a lot of the Asian countries love our features and actually use that to be more white. And like, she'll get tan and it doesn't appreciate the color. Like, she wants to be more white, basically. So that's interesting to think about. I don't know what it is. There's something um, built into us to say, I want what I can't have, kind of thing, almost. But hey, you want to address the chat like
Yeah,
you usually do,
yeah.
and
What about what David Sawyer says right here? Woe to me. I think that melanin blocks vitamin D and affects IQ. What's your take on that?
uh, he spelled effects wrong, but I'll give him that. That's interesting. I never looked into that. I mean, I would assume that's somewhat wrong because they're very high IQ people. I mean, I think if you want to go by IQ, pretty sure like Chinese and Asian countries specifically
Japan more than
have like the on average higher IQ. But there's also a dumbing down in America. So there's a lot of variables there. So I'm not really sure. I wouldn't think that I would be dumber because I have darker skin. That seems borderline racist almost, but no, I address the chat real quick. I'm going to take a couple minute break, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Grab some beers.
Roger that. All right, everybody. We have one of the premier guests in the history of the YouTube truth conspiracy next level shit type scene right now, and that's one Mr. Tim Osman. He's been around for a long, long time. He's been on every side of every fence. He's explored all the yards. He knows everything about everything. He's got a good take on everything. He never lets you down. As long as you treat Tim with respect, he will treat you with respect. A lot of people don't understand that. Tim and I were seemingly automatic enemies, when I first came out as a flat earther. But, he still had the respect to give me a chance. And when he did that, it made me respect him. And I don't really get why a lot of people continue to swear hatred for Tim when there's really no reason to. He's a very sensible young man. He's about 10 years or 9 years or so younger than me, but really has his head screwed on straight. And he's a gun owner. The sound is bad. Come on, Lori, really? I can't win tonight, man. Skipping big time? Maybe I got too many fans and stuff on. But yeah, Tim's an avid gun proponent. Tim is an avid constitutionalist. I wouldn't necessarily pigeonhole him into that category of constitutionalist, but I know that he stands up for what's right. He has a really good take on stuff, and Paradise Found says, plus he has great feet, Let's see what David Sawyer has to say here. Not to be racist, but high IQ and low IQ have the extremes when in the middle IQ seems to be more effective. I don't know about that. It's tough. If you're back, Tim.
Yep.
I'd like to know your on this idea. Okay, so there's definitely white culture, and there's definitely Asian culture. Asian culture is it's lofty. They're philosophical. They're simplistic. They're minimalists. There's a lot of wisdom in that. But at the same time, Asian countries have tended towards collectivism and communism, while in the West, which is primarily white and white culture, we also have a high IQ. Maybe not as high as Asians in general, but our culture seems to be a lot more rich and a lot more developed. But at the same time, in the West, as white people, we're also tend to be very materialistic. So do you think materialism affects how people perceive IQs in groups of people?
When I was grabbing beers, I actually wanted to come back and talk about the different cultures, actually, and talking about the Asian cultures as opposed to, say, the Black culture in America, and places like Nigeria or one of the African countries that they're very wealthy here in America. And I'm not sure materialism has to do it. I think the American culture in and of itself, with just watching mainstream media as if it's gospel and picking a side and kind of going with that side and basically being an NPC is more prevalent. I think that the rap culture, what the rap culture did to the Black community, the Black culture here, is the worst example. It's the bottom of the totem pole. It's the f these girls and kill cops and go sell drugs and do drugs and be a baller and all this stuff. Whereas even a white America has been degrading for quite a while as well. And it does need to be brought up that a lot of the Chinese that come in and they excel at school. They are more minimalists. Their culture has taught them a different way of life. I really think it has to do because we're, a quote unquote melting pot. here in America, we let all these illegals in, man. Um, you a lot of those people don't even take on the culture. You see a lot of the Spanish, like the Mexican and other cultures that still live to their cultural means, as in like they'll live in huge groups. They take care of their parents after they're retired or they get older. And kind of white America is like, hey, you got to get out when you're 17, 18, go get a job and go to college. So there's these cultural
Individual.
norms. Yeah. Yeah. It's the cultural norms that seem to kind of propel one race as opposed to another, in my opinion. Yeah.
Would you say that hip hop culture in America and in Europe too, would you say that that's closer of a culture to white American individualism, or would you say it's more closely resembling of Asian collectivism?
No,
Or is it a
it's more towards individualism. It's more towards almost solipsism in a way, in a certain sense, in that kind of
I'm gonna get mine?
like, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But then there's also the whole collectivism of hip hop culture where it's like fuck whitey, you know, brown power and shit too. And we got to
Yeah,
stick together and lean
and
on me, you know.
that's definitely being perpetrated right now too. It, you know, in the '90s with the thug like rap culture, and I'm kind of guilty in that I was listening to 97.9 in Texas as a kid, listening to Lil Wayne, and it just didn't seem to affect me. I was a little bit more thuggish. I guess I've kind of rounded my edges a little bit more nowadays. I've grown up, I guess, but it seems like some people don't, and I really think that instead of saying and bringing up that white cops are killing black people all the time, it's more like, hey, actually, if you look at the inner cities, black on black crime is outrageous. Like I said before, with only being 10 to 13% of the population, but doing over 50% of the murders and the crimes, the violence, the rapes, all this stuff. There's a reason for that. I don't necessarily believe that blacks have been born into a certain different angry type of mentality. I think that they've been sold down the river by the people that they're literally following, as in the rap culture, as in for the most part the liberal party. They've I mean, it's like a soft eugenics on all of us, truthfully.
Well,
You know.
hip hop culture is an easy way out for black people that don't want to get a job and actually work for themselves. They're just like, well, I'm going to blame the system. I'm going to blame whitey. I'm going to blame the fact that I came up in a neighborhood where everyone around me was dealing crack. So I started to crack too. If I didn't, I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't be able to eat food. And it's just a cheap cop out. And I don't know why there's this big divide, because in the 50s and 60s, at the very end of segregation, black people were starting to catch on and realizing that, hey, in America, it doesn't matter if you're black. If you work hard, you will get ahead. Segregation was actually working. And that's why I think that the eugenicists took segregation away from the black people. It was their right to be segregated, and they were being successful. There was a Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Unfortunately, it got burned down by white supremacists, supposedly, but they were successful. They had a Black Wall Street, and the black people were coming together, making money, supporting each other. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. You know what I'm saying? All that crap, bro. It was working. And hip hop is a cheap way out for those of them who.
It gives the victim mentality, and that's one of the biggest things I see on the majority, unfortunately, of black people. They have the victim mentality, and really at this point, us racist white men should actually have the victim mentality, because we are being victimized, but we weren't brought up that way. We don't have that mentality. And somebody in this chat says, he says he's a free-minded person, so his mind might have freed from himself. He said, arrested for half the murders, that's about 4,000 arrests. There is 40 million of us. I don't know what statistic you're going off of. I'm actually saying that if you look up FBI crime statistics, they're 10 to 13% of the population and do over 50% of murders, 50% of violent crimes. That's what I'm saying. And if Black Lives did matter, they'd actually address the issue of black on black crime, thug culture, drug selling, and why, you know, privatized prisons is a whole 2-3 hour show that we could have sometime. It's absolutely disgusting how many people are in prisons.
Famous thugs in the 90s were actually speaking out against black on black crime and trying to do what Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were trying to do what those guys were trying to do, and say, hey, let's not be, you know, the N-word to each other. Let's actually be respectful, because Whitey over here has been giving us chance after chance after chance, and we keep shitting on them and disrespecting the culture that they've provided for us to thrive within. You know, I remember this. This was a thing. Like, black people, like, remember Lauryn Hill? She would always stand up and say, black people need to stop fucking being idiots to each other, man. Like, let's get our shit together. Let's come up. And everyone was like, yeah, gung ho, let's come up. And then that like died when Lil Wayne came out or something. I don't know, like some other element in hip hop subverted that whole concept, that whole meme.
Yeah, for the most part, like MLK and some of those previous black leaders were much different from what we see, the Al Sharptons and some of the ones that we have now. They perpetuate the victim mentality nowadays. They perpetuate that Whitey's got his knee on our neck and we should have reparations. Whereas, you know, some of the black leaders back then were much more peaceful in their protests, much, much more. And, you know, now they have, everybody has the same rights these days. And maybe there is some certain sense of some cops saying, hey, you know, in their mind, thinking this guy that has his pants halfway down his ass and has tats up and down, teardrops and stuff like that, you know, in a place like Stop and Frisk in New York or whatever, they might go after those people statistically more than grandma white lady or some nicely dressed white person or even a nicely dressed black man. So in a certain sense, I don't like to admit, I don't think it's even true to a certain sense that there is kind of this inherent racism in America. But I do also see that the cultural Marxists, the culture creators, are mostly white. And what they've done is perpetuate a new style of what I call soft eugenics on the black culture. I think that there are some liberals out there, very rich ones, that actually set up these racial divides because they know that it will further put these people in prison. It will further, you know, get them to be hateful and kill each other and kill to rise up in this system that we have here. So in that sense, you know, I think that it could be made the case, but not in the case of cops. Like, I've been arrested many times. And before this, I didn't have really the greatest mentality on cops. I don't say, you know, roast them like bacon. I would never think of, you know, murdering them or anything like that. But once this happened, you know, I actually, the day after these rioters came through Salt Lake City and graffitied the whole town hall and all this stuff, there was cops outside walking around, and I went up and thanked them because they are the ones that are going to keep law and order. They're the ones that, you know, and sometimes they fuck up, and sometimes there's bad apples, but for the vast majority, and yeah, the citations and the stupid laws that we have, well, they're there to enforce the laws that lawmakers that we supposedly vote in. They're there to maintain the law, and I respect that much, much more now after seeing what's happened. I've seen old ladies getting beat up with 2x4s by black people. I've seen crowds of Mexicans and blacks come, beat up some white guy in Dallas. I've seen some sick stuff, but at the same sense, it's like they're pitching this George Floyd guy who had like a golden casket that was carried around like 5 different funerals, people crying, and Al Sharpton's there, Reverend Jesse Jackson's there. But at the same time, David Dorn, this black, he was 37 years in the force, and he was retired. He was doing a security side job at a pawn shop, and some black guy fucking shot him because he wanted to go steal stuff out of the pawn shop, where it's radio silence for CNNs and MSNBCs. So it doesn't. Black lives do not matter to these people. Select Black Lives Matter because it's all a fucking narrative. It's all bullshit, man. And it's sickening to see. It's absolutely sickening to see.
Exactly. So like we were saying earlier, there's these elites at the top. They're probably white guys or Jews or whatever the fuck they are. And, or, multinationalists or whatever. And they're the ones pushing for this racial divide. Now, we were talking about reparations for just a second. And I just personally think that reparations it's never going to happen, because there's no way they can justify me as a descendant of people who came here, white people that came here from Poland in the 1930s. Okay, my ancestors had literally nothing whatsoever to do with black people being enslaved, allegedly 400 years ago. Okay, so they better not try to fucking tax my wages to pay for black people to sit on their couch or go, looting for Nikes and shit like that and get a dole. That just doesn't even make sense. So my question to you is, do you think that reparations is just another way that these elites are rubbing the pain of blacks in their own faces? Like, oh yeah, we're going to tease you with reparations and then never give it to you because it can't be justified. Is it just another way that they rub it in there? Is that just another thing that they're rubbing in their face that, you're never going to get reparations?
First off, Auntie Meg says, yes, but you saw all that on TV at Tim Osman. Actually, this whole thing has been televised on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook Live. So literally people in the streets, I watched live streams where people got their asses beat up. So anyway, as far as reparations go, yeah, I think it's kind of like a carrot that they're dangling a little bit. And really, I think it's a complete political ploy. I think it's just, hey, we'll throw this out there and we'll get this base of people to vote, the usual base that we try to pander to, basically. They're just a bunch of panderers. And so, yeah, I think it's completely political. And as far as it ever happening, that would be the day. You know what? And really, I would say that I would say pre-2020, that will never happen. But then again, what's happened in 2020 is so beyond the pale that right now I'm almost desensitized to anything. The craziest thing that may happen could happen at this point, truthfully.
Definitely, yeah. What's your take on this whole idea that, I know we kind of were already on this earlier, and I'd just like to elaborate on it more, but what's your take on the idea that down here on the street level and, in real life, IRL, white people that are running around going out of their way to stand up for black people, it's really almost like those white people are saying that black people are inferior and that they need whitey's help.
Oh man, it's
right?
Well, kind of. It's there's a word for it, but basically
Virtue signaling.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. These people don't give two shits about black people, and maybe some of them do because they're getting the wrong information. They think that literally children walking around because of the color of their skin are being shot by police or something. And that's kind of the narrative that the left is trying to spin out of this whole thing. So maybe some people do believe it, but it is a hell of a lot of virtue signaling. And it's from the types that, if you ever watched any of the Chaz live streams or anything like that, like it's almost this one love hippie, liberal scum that come out to these things, dude. And literally, they're living in filth, man. They these people don't believe in putting up walls for the Mexicans, but they literally put up walls for their own little autonomous zone, and then they change the name of that, of course, because they need their vegan soy lattes, and they need to get out into the real world where real things happen, and you don't just have some topsoil on a field with some potted plants sitting there. Like, that's not realistic, but that's how simple minded these people are. Some of them are agitators like Antifa and even some of the BLM, and then you have some of the Asian provocateurs. You have some of the people that want to profit off of the what's happening right now. So they saw on the news that people were looting, and then hey, but yeah, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And then they go out and they're like, fuck, man, we can go get me some new tennies, man, some new tennis shoes. So it's a whole mixed bag of people. It's interesting. You even have like, I kind of brought it up earlier, but you seem to have like 30, 40, 50% of people having their phones out just to get like a viral video. So you have this grab bag, this mix of people all marching, not in solidarity. Everybody's got their own motives. And that's what's so funny about this whole thing, dude. It's insane.
Exactly. And Chaz, the first fucking thing they did was put up a wall. The very first fucking thing they did was put up a wall. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And then, no police. And then it's so funny that once someone gets shot with inside there, because it's a bunch of role playing actors basically with weapons, like, oh man, let's go to the gate, make sure the gate's good. Okay, we're good. Okay, man, no cops here. But then someone gets shot, and then Raz Simone, the whole warlord or whatever, the $5 million man that got $80,000 from the government to build his condo in the first place, is like, oh, the police didn't come and the ambulance didn't come to the autonomous zone. It's like, man, what the fuck, dude? So you're gonna live in a lawless land, and you're gonna not let the police in, and first responders can't come into a mostly an active shooting scene without having it locked down by police. So these people expect, and they blame it on Seattle or whatever, but I was like, hey, we should give that to them. Let's just give it to them. They can't immigrate here. We'll take their fucking passports. You can live in Chaz, man. You can't come and get the in your autonomous zone. You can't come and get the luxuries that we have in America because you wanted to separate yourself from that.
Yeah, you don't get Starbucks anymore. How long are you gonna last without your Starbucks, you fucking little cucks?
Yeah, and I mean, vegan food. Go try to live in the wild and try to forage, man. Go and try to live without killing animals. Like, it's nearly impossible. Now you're in a downtown area, and you think you're going to feed these hundreds of people with a few plants. I mean, it's like, I don't know, man. They haven't experienced the real world yet, dude. They haven't, and they've been completely brainwashed. And it's unfortunate because it to a certain extent, it could be argued that a lot of this propaganda that goes out are by white people, to white people, to black people, to everyone.
Yeah, these idiots over there in Chaz or whatever, they're completely conflating chaos with anarchy, right? Because anarchy is just lack of structured government. Has nothing to do with chaos. Chaos and looting are a completely different thing, and the news likes to call all that shit anarchy when it's not anarchy, it's chaos.
Yeah, that word is so dead to me, dude. I mean, it's like, if people understood what actual anarchy meant, then I would be for it. But everyone doesn't understand, so you can't be for anarcho-capitalism or anything like that, because it's just a misnomer at this point. People don't understand what actual anarchy means. It seems like anarchy, oh God, we're gonna riot and burn and everyone's dead, but it's like, no, that's actually not what it is. at all.
Yeah, so basically the government is trying to replace this generation of those of us from the 80s and 90s and 30s 30s all the way through the 90s, this whole generation of Americans that understood all these concepts quite well. And we had quite a thriving civilization here. And now they're trying to replace it with a bunch of young, ignorant people that they've shipped in from other countries, or young people that are from America that they've completely dumbed down, you know.
Yeah, it's like if Lord of the Flies, 1984, Fahrenheit 9/11, 9 or 411 or whatever it was, and Brave New World. It's like the offspring of that, dude. Like everything, even throughout America right now, not just even in Chaz. Chaz was like more like Lord of the Flies, but those four books are basically a testament to what we're living through right now. And unfortunately, I don't find it. Uh,
The Kalergi plan basically predated all these books. Keep that in mind. So they're pretty much following the script of what would happen if and when the Kalergi plan went into implementation, which it has and is very far along now.
well, Kalergi, weren't you talking about kind of the melding of races, though?
Yeah, but with that comes the melding of cultures and melding of IQs and melding of,
Uh,
idiocracy, if you will.
okay. I mean, to a certain extent, I think that the melding of skin color might actually happen at a certain point. You'd almost have to be like a white supremacist to think that you're going to have your own island with a bunch of white people on it to where they won't ever be, quote unquote, tainted by other races. I mean, it seems like it's inevitable that we all
What's
in 2000 years get melded together.
that? Well, that's the thing, is that the Kalergi plan, part of the Kalergi plan agenda is to present the concept to white people that they won't be white forever. When that's not really nature. I mean, Europe stayed Europe for how many thousands of years? Africa stayed Africa for how many thousands of years or whatever, it's not this inevitable thing that all these poor immigrants have to be incentivized and shipped into the white land specifically, which is exactly what's happening for this very purpose. It's basically a long-term slow white genocide, but it's not something that's natural.
Would I was listening to some white supremacist the other night against Destiny, and was it Vosh, I think? Like total beta male cucks, the two Destiny and the total liberal beta males, dude. And both of them, like, either one's Destiny, I think, is bisexual, and I'm not totally against gays. I'm just saying they literally eat spoonfuls of propaganda for lunch, breakfast, and dinner and snack, dude, every day, and it's made them who they are. They're total virtue signalers. They are trying to say that this whole um, BLM is legit and all this stuff, and you see these people, man, and really watching these protests, I feel that there's a pretty big contingent of beta male liberal virtue signalers out there, and we're in some trouble. I mean, they'll never be really anything in their lives,
They're weak,
but
they're wimps, and they're pussies. That's why they're scared to be proud of the fact that, oh, my ancestors are the ones that created, capitalism and fucking air conditioning and cars and shit, like they're like ashamed of the fact that their ancestors created cars and airplanes and shit.
yeah, and seeing all these hammer and sickles everywhere. I mean, and then also these people with iPhones out, or their Androids, or that's one thing you can give to capitalism is it does create a competitive environment for emerging technologies and to advance things, and that's probably why we're able to sit here with these computers, these microchips, using quantum physics and all this stuff right now, because there was a push by these larger corporations, for the most part, to build, better or worse life that we have right now, at least more technologically advanced. But as far as like some of these other models of life, I don't see, what we live in right now actually isn't really capitalism. It's more like crony capitalism, or there's several other words for it, but it's not like really the heart of it. A lot of the money has been basically moved over to basically the 0.01% that will have it in offshore banks and sit on a large portion of wealth, and wealth in a capitalistic society basically is time.
It's technically piracy in a weird way. It's like the elite are like kind of like pirates, and they do actually hold their funds offshore too, right?
Yard matey. Yeah, dude. Literally.
Hands off me booty.
My booty. It's very true, dude. I mean, it's kind of a crude way of putting it, but man, I mean, take what you can when you can, and as much as you can, and then when you have so much, it's not even about the money anymore. It's about the power. It's about the power. And so these people,
it's about putting people in the position where they have to comply with the pirates' demands, basically. And that gets pushed through with pop culture. Kim Kardashian has the iPhone 59, so everyone has to have the next iPhone 59, or else, what are we going to do with ourselves?
Even if they're eating ramen noodles, dude, they're going to have the motherfucking iPhone that Kim Kardashian and that big ass has, dude. Our culture is fucked, man. I mean, I don't think there's any turning back from this. It's getting worse and worse by the day, Zend, and basically with this new kind of social media, and it's not really new as far as humanity goes. It's quite new, but the Twitter, the YouTube, Facebook, all this stuff, what you see is there's a certain group which I'll call the cultural Marxists, that all own these companies in a certain form or fashion, to where people like, say, Stephen Molyneux, his channel was deleted the other day. He was almost up to 1 million subscribers. He's not a racist. He's not breaking terms of service, but they didn't like what he was saying. People like Andy Worski was removed as well. His channel turned to absolute shit when Jean Francis basically left, and then he didn't have any lineup of actual good guests. But if you have a certain viewpoint, and there's many more, and it was on the same day that Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube banned, and really it's mostly conservative voices out there that because are being removed.
What they're saying is that white silence is violence, right? Because if you have a big enough platform and you're not just directly worshiping at the foot of black people, then that must mean that you're a white supremacist, and you want to round them all up and put them in a concentration camp and kill them all off and all that, if you're not worshiping at the altar of black skin. That's the problem right now.
And this is something new. This whole, I mean, that's new, I think, to this year. This BLM uprising, the racial divide, and the whole bowing down on a knee. This is very symbolic. The face mask is very symbolic of being muzzled, basically. Social distancing. We're very social creatures. We have to be, 6 feet. There's no science on that. There's no science on lockdowns. There's no science on any of this. But
not only does the mask create a muzzle, it also dehumanizes people and makes everybody into an NPC where we can't see each other's faces, which helps the elite, because they don't want us relating to each other. They don't want us seeing each other's faces.
Yeah, and it's also all about social divide. Not only the social distancing, the masking, but then even within each subgroup, you like the Florida football team. I like the whatever football team. But also within each subgroup, where the face mask has become political, like I said before, where the liberal mostly seems to think that you should wear a face mask, running outside 90 degrees and at all times to save everybody and grandma and all this stuff. Whereas conservatives are my body, my choice kind of thing, which is funny because when it comes to abortion, that's actually their argument. But so everything is used by the cultural Marxists to all fucking push us apart. And it's our natural human ability to actually um, mourn for each other or care for each other, and be decent to each other. Like if you know, if you're decent to me, I'm going to be decent to you. Why would I do anything else but that? But then you get into politics, or you get into your football team, or your UFC fighter, or anything like that, and people are trained to immediately come out with vitriol, or oh, this guy's an idiot because he likes this, or whatever. So I think, I think this is cultural Marxism. Like it's a communist takeover right now, and really, I'm surprised I'm saying this at all politically, but I really hope that Trump is reelected, because uh, I don't know if life will even really be worth living if some of these other people get into power with what's going on right now. This is not what I want to raise children in. This is not what I want to live in personally. I'd love to find a different country where I could immigrate to at this point.
Yeah. Would you be willing to save what's left of traditional America if the cost was we're going to go ahead and segregate the races peacefully and give everybody the same equal opportunity? It's just that we're going to kind of go back to segregation. Would you be down with that or no?
Um,
And not all the bad segregation where it was like, a public fountain where whites can only drink at this one, black people have to go to the shitty one over there. No, like give black people their whole own city. Give 13% of every state. Give them 13% country, whatever it takes. Give them that and let them thrive. Let them be amongst themselves. I don't think they would ever even want to come interact with white people because they don't really like white people that much. We've all figured that out by now. So maybe they would just
majority,
be better off.
let's, I don't even want to give a percentage on it. I wouldn't say they, as in all black people don't. I know a lot of black people, mostly conservative voices that are not like that. But
Being a
as
black
far
man, being a black man that wants to get white pussy is different than being a black man who enjoys being around all white people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, one of the black conservatives I listened to, Officer Tatum on YouTube. He's actually pretty good. I got recommended one of his videos from like a year, or like maybe even 2 years ago. His channel is getting like 30,000 subs a day, dude. He's on fire right now. But one of the things he said, as far as why black men are attracted to white women, is because of the white culture. They're actually more attracted to the white culture than what they grew up in. If they were from the Bronx, or they're from a large black community, they actually, and this is, there's no studies that, this isn't really even my opinion. It's interesting to think about, because that is kind of a thing that happens. And some of the shallow women think, that I guess that black men can please them better in certain circumstances by sitting on a couch and having a long dong Johnson or something. But it's interesting to see, man. I don't know. I don't know. As far as what you're saying about, kind of a white supremacist, or a black supremacist kind of mentality, I kind of think of, the logistics in that. Like, could we, it would ultimately be unfair for either party. Somebody, if Utah turns into the black Mecca or something, well, then all the white people got to go, and then they got to go and find other jobs and do all this stuff. And then if a large,
Yeah, I know.
Chicago or something like that, the white people are there, then all the black people got to go. So it's not fair. But some of the white supremacists on that Destiny, I was on Modern Day Debates the other night. They say that there's studies that the races get along better with the similar race, the same race. And I just wish that, truthfully, that we could all kind of come together and say that, our cultures are being fucked up by a certain group of people, a kind of a handful as opposed to the masses of people propagandizing us and pitting us off against each other. There's nothing more that I would like than us all to just get along, man. Like, there's no reason for us to have hatred towards blacks or for blacks to have hatred towards us. But some of this stuff has been so deeply seated in them that, I mean, they're, go ahead.
About the archetype from the 80s and 90s, that archetype of the young black man who was trying to fit into white culture. You know, your Will Smith characters on TV, your sitcom characters, Carlton, you know, guys like that. Those are kind of black people that white America was more than willing to accept. And it wasn't about skin color anymore. People were already past that. It was about, can you behave in society? Can you not be a criminal? Can you aspire to do hard work and reap the rewards of your hard work? Can you be accountable? That used to be something that blacks were striving towards. I mean, think about them. Wasn't there a movie called Lean on Me? You know, wasn't there a movie where Michelle Pfeiffer was a white teacher in a black school and she like improved their lives by giving them culture and accountability and responsibility and all that stuff? That used to be cool. And all of a sudden one day that got turned all around and that's all been thrown out. And I guess it's the cultural Marxists who have done that. Right?
Yeah, to a large extent. I mean, yeah, it's the mainstream propaganda machine. And, you know, you said Jews earlier, and that kind of brings up a certain kind of light in my brain where there seems to be a large Jewish, and I'm not blaming the Jewish people, I'm just saying there's a large Jewish influence on media and banking and a lot of stuff that actually holds us down and pushes us apart. And so there seems to be a select group of people that are doing this to us. And I really feel that, you know, this white supremacy or black supremacy, you know, ship them off back to Africa, or us get off here and let them have the land that they built or whatever. It doesn't need to even be the case, but it's being proposed as a case because of the racial divide pitched by these people. And I can't name names. I'm just saying it's obvious. There's
the majority of black women really do frown upon their black men getting with other races. They really, really hate that. But the black men are more liberal with that kind of stuff. You know, black women probably feel like they're going to be weeded out because, you know, on dating apps and stuff like that, if you look at the statistics, the least desirable demographic in the entire planet Earth is black females. Like nobody wants black females. They're at the bottom of the totem pole. So they're the ones that they have the most to lose. They're actually on the brink of extinction, especially with all the abortions that they're committing now.
Yeah, that's a big problem. And, you know, the black men also, for the most part, either going to jail or just, you know, just impregnating them and leaving them so that, you know, the woman has to raise a generation of children that don't have the male role model in the house. These are all big issues. And unfortunately, you know, some of the issues that we brought up tonight, because we're white racist males, are not talked about. These are things that we can't actually talk about. This is why I came to your channel, because I can't, you know, I wouldn't talk about it on my channel because I don't do lives anymore. But also, like, a lot of people wouldn't be understanding of kind of our viewpoint on this. And this may even be taken down, truthfully, because these are things that in our culture right now, we're actually not permitted to talk about. We're not to talk about the real issues, as in the black crime or the murder rate or the black on black crime. Like, that's terrible. And why is that? Why is that? Well, I think we both can agree it's the culture. And what is that? Well, it's the rap culture, and it's the culture of abortion, and it's the culture of single motherhood. It really is not having a strong, firm. Yeah. I mean, when I was in trouble, my mom didn't scare me. She, you know, when I stole or did something stupid as a kid, But when dad got home after he worked, oh my God, I was scared into oblivion. And you know what? For the most part, they were trying to do me good, even though I didn't understand that till about 23. Their morals that they, not stealing or not being a thug or not doing this or the drugs or all that came to me in later in life because I was so rebellious. But also, like, you can appreciate that. But if I didn't have my dad, well, I'd run all over my mom. She can't do shit.
Exactly, because to be a man is to be a gun, and you have to be taught safety. You know, you have to
Yep.
you have to be taught how to be a man and actually have accountability and not abuse your power, not beat your wife when she pisses you off, not beat your kids when they piss you off. You have to be responsible and level-headed and show the leadership. That's what being a man is all about.
Yeah. It
It's
sounds like we're kind of wrapping up right now, but I think in 10 minutes we're at 2 hours. I think that'd be a great time to stop. So maybe we'll do final thoughts. But what were we gonna say?
Oh, I was just saying that's how the elites have really cracked down on the black community by giving them the dole, taking away the fathers out of the home, promoting the easy way out, promoting drug use, drug sales, gun violence, tax-free living, parasitic mindset,
Victim mentality. Yeah.
all at once, even though they're the ones that are actually victimizing everyone around them in their own community, and then calling themselves the victims.
So I think kind of the moral of the story for me is that it's not like an incessant or inherent white racism in America, or even with the police force, like they're racist against black people. Maybe some of them are. There surely are some pretty racist cops. Uh, but I think that we're kind of getting to a closing in that there are people that are propagandizing us on both sides, on all sides, and they're pitting us off against each other. They're making us actually, really, I'm not racist, but at the same time, it's not helping me be less racist if I'm seeing the black on black crime, or I'm seeing what I said with the looting and the pillaging that happened, basically, mostly being black people. And at a certain point, it's not the inherent racism of white people in America. It's actually the cultural Marxists that I think at this point, most of them are white, probably. Um,
They're hovering over
but
their target. It's kind of weird. It's like they know that white culture, not white skin, but they know that white culture is the most dangerous thing to their collectivist new world order. So they got to get rid of whitey because we're just too strong, too independent. We're the ones that have been leading history. They got to get rid of the leaders. They got to cut the head off of the Hydra, if you will.
yeah, I think they want also the white people to back the black people in their own destruction, even though they're the ones orchestrating their own destruction with everything that you've just said, the victim mentality, the thug culture, all this kind of stuff, the single home, the abortion, all this stuff. That's not what I want for black people. That's not what I don't think you want for black people.
No, I believe
Um,
black people should. I honestly believe that we can have a positive segregation and let the black people actually thrive on their own without interference from us, and but yet also be able to experience the same benefits that we have collectively through our United States government. I believe that they should deserve their own shot. I believe every race deserves their own land. I think the idea of a melting pot is just cancer. Any
how about let's say it'd be interesting to see, like, if you want to be a white supremacist in America, let's have a spot for those people. And then if you want to be a black supremacist and live in a black only, where you pay taxes, for people in jail, and you pay all this taxes for your own black culture, maybe we can give them their land. There's a white supremacist land, and let the people that want to get along with each other stay with each other. And maybe that is kind of the middle ground, because every time I travel, I see so much land in America that is not used. So if this racism is that big of a problem, and say white people want to live and make their own culture with their own white people and go to white business owners and whatever, then have little white land, you just kind of like the American Indians, to yourself. There you go. You got it. Okay. And then if there's black supremacists where they want to live in black land, well, then there you go. Live in your own culture, have your own economy, pay your own taxes towards your own people, and I'd be totally happy with that. But I think this is 2020. I think that we can all get along, and we need to realize who the people are that are controlling our lives and making us pit off against each other. The people are people. I think we all bleed the same blood, dude. I don't want to be called a racist. I think that being a white man in America is basically the hardest out of anyone right now.
For sure.
We're saying that there's white fragility and we should have white guilt because of what our ancestors did. Dude, I was born in like late 80s, man. I grew up and everyone played with black kids and played with Mexicans and whatever. Cultural diversity to me is really cool. So I think that would be maybe something. It's still not logistical in my mind, but it's better than saying, hey, in inhabited land of all colors, we need to kick you out for the black people to be here. And in another area, we need to kick you out for the white people to be here. I think there's plenty of land for us all, the people that want to live together and are fine together, keep America how it is, and then maybe section it off if it really is that big of a problem. Then do that.
Yeah, people don't understand that in the modern West, there's more expected of the white man than anybody else. So much is expected of us as white men in America since our whole lives.
Well, we're the most shit on, in my opinion, mostly right now. Like this is insane.
So much is also expected of us from our own parents and stuff like, oh, you better go to school, you better have a good career, you better do this, and then all the different races around you expect you to not be racist and do this and go out of your way to do that and all these different things. And then women have their fucking claws in our backs. You better do this the right way. You better not be a chauvinist anymore. So we have to deal with feminism too. And then everything is, again, let's tear down the patriarchy. Well, if the patriarchy wasn't here, you guys wouldn't even be in a position to sit around on your couches bitching and moaning like little bitches about tearing down the patriarchy. We're the ones that gave you those buildings to live in, People don't appreciate, I don't know. I just think that the other groups out there, they need to kind of back off white men and start to, give us some thanks for everything that we fucking provided for them. Our culture has provided that. And it's weird because, people will argue, oh, Asian men and even Asian women now, so much is expected of them from their parents. That's why they all end up doing so good in math. That's why they all end up being doctors and shit like that, or owning their own successful small businesses and stuff like that in America. But they're really sending that money back to Asia, and they're just using us and our prosperity as a means to their end. So yeah, culturally, there might be a lot more expected of them, but it's not the same thing as what's expected of us culturally. Like, because white people are the ones that are supposed to be the big culture that accepts everybody from around the world, and that's part of our, I hate to say this, and I know you're not going to like the sound of this, but that's part of our supremacy, is that we're the only culture that is capable of doing things like this, being compassionate to the huddled, dirty masses and shit. Other countries would never let us in their countries and do this for them, or do this for us.
Well, I thought I was going to argue with you about, the homeless are a huge problem in America. Then you said other countries don't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Other countries don't let people cross their borders like this. No, that's not the case. Mostly for political reasons, man. Like, I mean, we do have a lot of Mexicans that come in. We have a lot of Asians that come in all around the world, and they send it back. Yeah, they send some of our wealth out. But this is kind of the game of the petrodollar, where if you don't play the game like Gaddafi or Saddam or all the other people that got murdered, basically, then you get taken out. So the whole world is already on the petrodollar, and it's the premier, basically, dollar. So it doesn't exactly matter that it's being sent out to other countries, but yeah, I totally agree. It was a melting pot. Yeah, it's the land of the home, land of the free, home of the brave. We all came out from different places or whatever, but at a certain point, we can't have the whole world invade fucking United States, dude.
Especially not the slow leak invasion that we have now. So let me ask you this real quick. When COVID first kicked off in March or whatever, did gas prices in your neck of the woods just completely plummet like they did here in the Southeast?
No, actually, they stayed about the same. And then I went down to, I was in New Mexico. It was $1.25. And then I went, or Albuquerque was, then Santa Fe was like maybe $1.60. And then when I went to Texas, it was literally like $1.25. So we didn't. The California stayed at $3 or whatever, even though they were basically giving away crude oil. Literally, actually, they're paying you to take their crude oil at a certain point. So no, but I did get a little bit of some good gas prices when I went to Texas. That's for sure.
I guess that has to do with the lack of density of population where you're at, as opposed to where I'm at, where it's very densely populated.
Could be. I mean, Salt Lake's pretty big, so I'm in Salt Lake. The surrounding area is pretty big. But yeah, when you're kind of on the road, some of those places are definitely a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. All right. So I guess you want to wrap it up now?
Yeah, excellent chat, man. Definitely didn't get into COVIDs that much, but I think a lot of people are really like
Burn.
they got the COVID fever, dude. Yeah, they're burnt out. It's been in our faces for like 4 or 5. I don't even know anymore, dude. But the racial divide, we got onto that quite a bit. Maybe we'll come back another time and I'll do a little more of a presentation on what I think is happening with COVID. We did get into some of the kind of connections between the racial divide and the coronavirus issue right now, but most of it was because of your last video that I listened to you. I'm not going through that. I have, like I said, I have 1% here in Utah of Black people. So you sound like you're in a more densely populated area where you've seen some shit that is really, I was like, dude, I got to talk to you actually. Cause that was, I just haven't experienced that here, you know?
Yeah, people out there don't understand that it can get real fucking bad in certain areas. I bet you Chicago is even 10 times worse than Orlando. I bet you Chicago, people just walk up and punch you in the face. In Orlando,
Exactly.
in Orlando, it's just little trolling kind of things. It's like you're just like getting trolled all day long. It's almost like a Truman show kind of experience in a way, or like I don't know, like I feel like I'm almost like a targeted individual. I know that I smoke a lot of the green and I could be being paranoid, but I'm seeing these things transpire in front of me that literally don't make any sense whatsoever. Like someone coming, okay, there was a 4-lane road going one direction and the person was trying to turn left. So they should have been in the fourth lane, farthest on the left. Instead, they pulled up in front of me all the way on the other side into something that wasn't even a lane for them. It's literally a left turn lane exclusively to get into a plaza. And they gunned it right up into my face and started waving their hands. I'm like, who the fuck are these people? What are these people doing? Like, this doesn't even make sense anymore. I'm just being targeted right now. And it just compiles and compiles. And then every time you go into a public place like a restaurant or anything, the people of color there they're giving you shady looks. You turn around and they're staring at you and shit. It's really getting scary, man. It's really bad.
Truthfully, there's always in my life, like I lived in Omaha, where if you walked around with white skin in North Omaha, and this was 10 years ago, dude, like, you know, you might get shot, dude. And there's some areas where my white skin going around in black neighborhoods and stuff might get shot, might get harassed, man. So my ending is I feel like there's a lot more racists in the black community, you know, considering if black people moved here more so now, like I said, 1%, if there were more black people, like white people wouldn't fucking attack them, dude. So that's what's sad. That's kind of what you're outlining is there's like an inherent victimhood from whitey, whereas we're just like, we're just all people kind of thing. And so then we get called the racist and then what we're talking about is racist. Cause you know, it's like, it's so overblown, and it's in our face so much that I'm like, you know what, cool. I know I'm what I am, and I know where I can go and I can't go, and white neighborhoods I'm a little bit more welcome in. That's just how it is for me right now. Sorry.
Yeah, and yeah, and it doesn't matter to what degree the racial divide exists in your life or in that person's life that you're interacting with, of a person of color, or whatever. It doesn't matter to degree of to which that exists. But well, I lost my thought. Sorry.
No worries, man. Good chat. We'll definitely have to come back and do another one, a couple weeks or something.
One last question. I'm sure that the people are going to want to know: are you planning on inseminating your yellow princess?
You know what? I've been hurt by a lot of white people as far as girlfriends go, and couple black chicks. It just didn't work out. But never found somebody so happy, so always happy, so younger. She's 24, but head on her shoulders, kind of thing. So, um,
From a
it,
MGTOW standpoint, that's all part of a woman's game, man. You got to be extra careful, especially when it's something's too good to be true. It might be too good to be true. And there's also a lot of lore around the idea that Asian women are notoriously flip floppers. They might as well be
well,
the John Kerry of relationships and shit, right?
that's definitely not my experience. It's literally the opposite. It's 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 an interesting thing for me, man. Actually, I've never experienced it, dude. The culture is much different, and like you said, other cultures strive to be more white, and they praise us in certain ways. So, you know,
Okay, well, the very last thing that this world needs is a jaded, divorce raped Tim Osmond. Okay.
true. Or a little Asian. What's interesting, really quickly on a last note, though, like what's interesting about the white race, and even like redheads. I'm a redhead. I'm more blonde now, but it's kind of a recessive gene, obviously, and it's very, very rare. So I'm like the rarest breed on earth, basically, a redhead white person.
Yep.
But when you mate with a Asian, like all of the traits of Asian almost come out. There's very little, like I have blue eyes, that actually blue green eyes, depending on the shirt I wear. Um, all of it goes to basically the Asian. So that's just a funny last note. But thanks for the chat, dude. It was definitely fun, man.
I'm so glad you came on, man. You're a highly, highly renowned and honored guest to have on this show, man. A lot of people don't understand my love for you, but they can all basically go suck themselves off and shit.
I
And
agree. And so can those liberal cuck boys, man. Have a good night, bro.
all right, good talking to you, bro. See you later.
Later, man.
All right, guys, you heard it. It's an odd thing, my relationship with Tim Osmond. He's the antithesis of VB when it comes to topics like, the shape of the earth and a couple other things. But for the most part, we get along really, really well on most subjects. And it's the same with me and Jed and me and a couple other people. But you really can't go wrong hearing from Tim Osmond. A little bit younger than me, but very, very wise, very, very willing to look into things from all sides. That's what it takes to be a true skeptic. He's persevered. He hasn't given up on the scene. He's still hanging around, listening to Validation Boy live streams here in the middle of 2020. I mean, that says something. That says that he's too smart to give up. He's too smart to just turn it all in and become an NPC and hand his life over to, an empty existence without thinking about conspiracies and thinking about why things happen in the world. Peanuts Clark asks me if 2021 will be better. I mean, I don't know. Are we even going to be here in 2021? Are they not just going to gas us all? right? Lori Gale has contributed quite a bit. Thank you so much for joining me. Sam Hyde says 2021 is going to be much worse. So glad to have all you guys in here. First 5 in the live, as per tradition, were, off the top of my head, in at number 1, Vlad. In at number 2, Schlumminger. In at number 3 was They Lie, Ohio. In at number 4 was, I believe, Cigar Face. And in at number 5 was, off the top of my head, I know who it was. Oh, well, I forgot. But we've been joined by Cleary. We've been joined by Z-Rune, Free Minded, Anti-Meg, Peanuts Clark, Ed, also known as Big Mac Miller Lite. And it's been quite a show, guys. What a guest. You cannot go wrong with Tim Osman. I'm so grateful that he was able to come on here and contribute as much as he did. I know he hasn't been live in a long time, and it's very tough. It's very tough to go live. But I hope I made it a nice, inviting environment for him, because I got nothing but respect for the guy. Ohio, David Sawyer. David Sawyer has contributed quite a bit. Into the Break. John Doe. Wish I could remember who that 5th person was. There was Paradise Found, Leeds Rules, Jesse Kozlowski. Do a show with Keith Woods. I don't know who that is. Either way, it's been a pleasure having all you guys. Thank you very much, Tim Osman. I'm going to retitle this, and it's going to take quite a while for it to process. Vicnoid 1, you did good, VB. You're a good host. Thank you so much, Vicnoid. Maybe one day I'll get you on my show. I'd love to hear your voice and have a great conversation with you too. No pressure either. I could have a whole big panel full of guests, and you could just participate. I need to get female voices in here. Yeah, I might be a chauvinist pig, right? I might be a misogynist fucking MGTOW and shit. But hey, I respect ladies that respect me, okay? It's feminism itself that I'm against. So don't take it personal, ladies, all right? I know that's hard, because that's what ladies do, is they take everything personally. It's in their biology. But I would love to have some female voices in here. So next time when I go live, I'm going to try to get a panel together. Don't be a bunch of fucking pussies, guys, all right? Much love, Vicnoid. Wow. This has been Validation Boy live stream, July 3rd, 2020.